In 2021, the Washington State Legislature banned most police pursuits unless it was for a violent crime or sex offense. While this might sound reasonable, the reality is that public safety decreases as criminals become more brazen, knowing the police cannot pursue them to enforce the law.
For today's video, I want to give a shout out to a group of politicians out in the state of Washington. I'll go ahead and put their pictures up here. This is a collection of police chiefs, sheriff's officers, like actual county sheriffs, and some different city executives, police union members, as well as council members from different cities across the state of Washington. What they are going to do is I'm going to show you the video that they made, and they are speaking out against a collection of quote-unquote police reform laws that were passed by the state of Washington. 3 of them specifically that I have a serious problem with. One was virtually a statewide ban on vehicular pursuits. They made it a very narrow list of crimes that the police can now pursue out of, and they took the decision-making authority out of the local jurisdiction's hands, making it the local police less able to adapt and respond to increasing crime rates. Another thing that they did was they virtually decriminalized hardcore drugs like cocaine and heroin. Another law that they could not have, they were too stupid to see what the outcome was going to be, was that they made a use of force law dictating that a police officer must have probable cause before he has a use of force on an individual. Now, at first thought, you might believe, well, this is a good law. Police officers shouldn't be going and putting their hands on people without probable cause. I would like to tell you a story that might illustrate why this is ill-advised and the reason that we need to be including police agencies and their feelings on these laws before we simply go and implement them. For some reason, when a politician comes out and says, oh, I have a police reform, and then the police officers, the police chiefs, the agencies, the unions come out and say, hey, look, that's a bad idea. That's going to make society more dangerous. These politicians say, see, I told you the police are bad. They're reluctant to reform. There's a fat bastard in my jurisdiction that likes to say that all the time. If you disagree with him, then that means that you're against reform. That's the kind of things that totalitarians like to say. But regardless, here's my story. A police officer cannot use force on someone without probable cause. So this is a very common type of run that I respond on. Let's say I'm responding to an apartment complex where someone calls in and says, hey, I am in apartment B, and over in apartment C, I can hear a lot of blood-curdling screams. It sounds like the female half of that relationship is possibly being murdered. I would not like to leave my information. I would like to remain anonymous. So police officers are dispatched to an apartment on an unknown complaint. They don't even know if, in fact, a crime has been committed. You do not have probable cause if you do not know if a crime has been committed. So the officers arrive on the scene. As they're approaching the building, they see a man run out of the apartment in question and run down the stairs. He sees the officers and he runs away from them. What do the officers have at this point in time? Do they have probable cause to believe that a violent crime has been committed or that a crime has been committed at all? No, they do not. They have a reasonable suspicion. They have reason to believe that a crime has been committed and that that person is fleeing just committed a crime. So in Ohio, And normal places around the country, the officers will give pursuit to that person. The pursuit in itself is not against the law under Washington State's new law. Now, what happens when the officers catch that person? If they're running after him and they say, hey, stop, and he doesn't stop, guess what happens? A use of force. It might be a relatively minor use of force. They might just be very fleet of foot. They might catch up to him, grab him by the arm and say, stop, I need to talk to you. They might end up tackling that person, and they might slide on the ground and his face might hit a giant rock, causing significant injuries to the person. Now, in most normal places across the country, that would be considered an appropriate use of force. You get called to a place on a 911 call. Somebody runs from that apartment before you've had the opportunity to investigate whether or not there's a crime. You have a use of force. Somebody gets injured. It is what it is. Now, the officers, let's just say the officers chase that guy. They tackled him. His face breaks. They go upstairs to the apartment and there's nobody there. There's no woman there. There's some broken appliances, some broken plates and glassware and stuff like that, but there's no victim. If you don't have a victim, you don't have a crime. You don't have probable cause. Those officers just broke the law by chasing after that man and breaking his face. Let's go ahead and change the story up a little bit. The officers arrive on scene. They know that the neighbor called, said there's a woman upstairs in apartment B. Sounds like she's being murdered. A man runs out of that apartment. The officers are about to give chase and they say, you know what? We don't have probable cause. We're not going to chase him. They go upstairs to the apartment and they find a woman lying on the ground unconscious, struggling to breathe with bubbles of blood coming out of her face. They have just walked up on a very serious crime. The only lead they have on solving that crime is this man that just ran out of the apartment, but they had to let him go because of this new law. Then you also have to think, is that person a suspect? They do have probable cause to believe that a crime has occurred because there's a woman that is grievously injured inside this apartment. But do they know who did it? What evidence do they have to determine who the suspect is? How do the officers not know that the guy who ran from the apartment hadn't just gone up, found her that way, and took off running? He is a person of interest or somebody that the police would like to speak to. They do not have probable cause at this point in time to go out and have a use of force against him. This is a serious problem with what's happening out in the state of Washington. These are the type of situations that law enforcement officers will think about and legislators will not. This is another reason that politicians need to keep their noses out of police work. I think that's all I'm going to say about that. I've said enough. These guys that are coming up next, they do a much better job of presenting the issues than I ever will. I hope you enjoy. And there's also a phone number at the end of the video for the legislator in the state of Washington. So if you are a citizen or a resident of that state, I would encourage you to put some pressure on your legislator and the elected officials who refuse to make changes to these laws. I would encourage you to do everything within your power to make them go away, because they are doing nothing but making your state less safe.
Police, open the door. Police. Open the door. Open the door. Hey, open the door. Nope, he's putting in gear. He's going. Don't do it. And he's gone. Oh, he's crashed. He's crashed. Nope, he's gone.
Yeah, he came close to him.
Yeah, are you all right?
I'm good.
Okay.
In 2021, the Washington State Legislature banned most police pursuits unless it was for a violent crime or sex offense. While this might sound reasonable, the reality is that public safety decreases as criminals become more brazen, knowing the police cannot pursue them to enforce the law.
My fellow Snohomish County mayors and I share a deep and growing concern for the safety of our communities due to the tide of rising crime we are seeing.
In other news tonight, the city of Spokane, Spokane County, and the state of Washington all seeing a big spike in car thefts right now.
Vehicle thefts increased 88% for the first 3 months of this year.
Here in Bellingham, the numbers are astronomical. Statewide, in the first 2 months of last year, there were about 4,500 car thefts. This year, nearly double that, believed to be a new record.
I have never seen criminals as emboldened as they are now.
The Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs point to a state Supreme Court decision that decriminalized the possession of small amounts of drugs and law enforcement reform laws that forbid police from pursuing someone in a stolen car.
Our mayors, law enforcement, and the community asked for help, and the legislature made the specific decision to continue to allow for blatant disregard of the law.
Law enforcement's deeply concerned that some policing reforms may have had unintended outcomes.
We are witnessing actual crimes like the ramming of police cars as criminals attempt to get away. This is both dangerous for law enforcement and for the public at large.
The reality is, criminally minded people are taking advantage of the new laws and creating more victims as a result.
And with the recent Blake decision at the state Supreme Court and the lack of a fix by the state legislature, we now have a scenario where it's very difficult to get individuals who are struggling with a drug addiction into treatment.
We're seeing a rise in drug addiction. We're seeing a rise in fentanyl overdoses, and not just overdoses, but deaths.
The Blake decision makes it practically impossible for our officers to enforce the law.
The direction of public safety in the state of Washington is leading to a mass exodus of police officers in nearly every jurisdiction.
The criminal justice system needs action and support by all.
Laws preventing police pursuits make arresting these car thieves a challenge, and low staffing numbers mean resources are already spread thin.
If current laws stay the same, we're going to continue to see a crisis in public safety staffing.
Fewer police officers means less ability to provide justice for victims. They need to know we are here for them when they call.
Chelan County was one of the first jurisdictions adversely affected by this new legislation. Our suspect was able to steal a school bus and simply drive away from us. Instead of apprehension earlier on in his crime spree, he was allowed to commit further crimes and destroy his house, also belonging to his spouse and children. This was completely preventable.
There are some criminal suspects that need to be apprehended while their crimes are being committed to prevent further victimization to our communities.
We need to take a balanced approach to this public safety issue.
No one wants more pursuits, which are inherently dangerous. But current law has created an atmosphere of defying the law even on simple traffic stops.
There is a victim behind every one of these crimes, and they need us to take action so their voices can be heard.
Victims of auto theft are too often those who can least afford it. With older cars, with fewer anti-theft systems, with less insurance coverage, and with greater impacts on their lives.
Recently, the state of New Jersey reversed its prohibition on police chases, precisely because of the same increases in crime and that the perception that fleeing the police was an encouragement to commit crimes.
It's important to evaluate these laws to see what is working and what is not.
We are not advocating for more pursuits. We are advocating for more police authority to engage in pursuits so the criminal action is not given a free pass.
As your local elected officials and leaders in public safety,
we're asking for your help.
We're asking for your help.
We're asking for your help.
We are asking for your help in getting our community
on a better path for public safety.
Our government works best when we
as a community participate in the process, and the time is now.
And the time is now.
And the time is now.
The time is now.
Please reach out to your local representatives
and urge them to change the current laws
in support of public safety and providing justice for victims.
Please join us in advocating for safer communities.